Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something crucial, I think. We're looking beyond the classroom walls.
Yeah, way beyond.
We're examining the student's digital social life. Where so much actually happens these days, the learning, the support, sometimes even the panic before an exam.
Absolutely. And our mission today, it's pretty specific. It's about understanding let's say, the science behind student communities online, what makes them tick, what makes them work.
And critically, finding the safest, most effective tools. Because just letting students use whatever's out there, well, that seems increasingly risky.
It really is. So we're bringing together quite a bit here. There's academic research, proper studies on using social networks in teaching, technology-enhanced learning, TL, they call it.
Okay, the serious stuff.
The serious stuff, yeah. But we're also mixing that with insights from, well, a different world, digital marketing, online community building, people who do this for a living, building engaged groups.
That's an interesting mix, academics and marketers.
Well, you need both perspectives, I think, because the core question we're tackling is this. How do student communities actually help with learning? Homework help, social support, all that.
Right.
And importantly, what are the real downsides, the shortcomings of just using the usual suspects like WhatsApp or Discord before we get to maybe a better solution, an owned solution.
An owned solution. Okay,
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. So let's start with the fundamentals. Why is community, this connection piece, so vital for students in the first place? Why should schools even care about these digital spaces?
Well, the core business of education fundamentally involves connection. It's rooted in something called sociocultural theory.
Okay.
Basically, it stresses that learning isn't just downloading information, it's a social process. Talking to peers, arguing, explaining that interaction is actually critical for cognitive development.
So it's not just about getting the right answer from a friend. It's the process of getting there together.
Exactly. Exchanging ideas, debating concepts, even just figuring out homework instructions, it's active learning. Facebook's whole original pitch was about building community. And while their motives are different, that core idea applies deeply to education.
And students are already doing this, right? They're using WhatsApp, Facebook groups, whatever, to kind of consolidate what they learned in class.
They absolutely are. And the research shows something interesting about how they do it best. It seems that small groups with not too many members are often preferred.
Smaller groups. Why is that?
Well, it seems to foster confidence. There's more privacy, less fear of, looking silly asking a basic question. It creates a safer space for genuine engagement.
That makes sense. A low-stakes environment. And this ties into something we hear a lot about, social emotional learning, or SEL.
Absolutely essential. SEL isn't separate from academics. It underpins it. If students feel safe, supported, and connected online in a positive, tolerant environment, they're more, emotionally available to learn.
Emotionally available? I like that framing. If you're stressed or feeling isolated online, you just don't have the headspace for complex ideas.
Precisely. And technology, often seen as a negative force here, can actually be incredibly positive for certain students.
Oh, so?
Well, the sources highlight benefits for marginalized students. Think about students dealing with disability, or maybe they've recently migrated, or navigating issues around sexuality.
Yeah.
For them, digital spaces can sometimes lower the social barriers of face-to-face interaction. It gives them access to a wider range of peers, helps build relationships during online tasks that might be harder to form otherwise. It can be a real equalizer.
So it's not just about academics, it's about finding belonging and support networks too.
Definitely. And the academic side has tangible benefits too. We see both informal learning, like students following experts or organizations in their field online.
Right, passive learning almost.
Sort of, yeah. And formal learning, where instructors actually design tasks using these platforms.
Okay, give me an example of that. How does a formal task work well on, say, social media?
There was this one fascinating study with nursing students. They were asked to use a Twitter-like format, just 140 characters, to reflect on really complex ideas about nursing and caring.
140 characters, that sounds incredibly restrictive for reflection.
You'd think so. But the engagement rate was astonishing 95%, and this wasn't even for a grade.
95%. On an optional task. Why did that work so much better than, say, writing a forum post on Moodle?
It seems the constraint forced clarity. You couldn't waffle. You had to distill your thought right down to its core essence. That act of forced synthesis, it seems, really deepened the reflection and boosted engagement.
Wow. So the platform's design itself shaped the learning outcome.
Exactly. It shows that the choice of platform isn't just logistical, it's pedagogical. And this leads to another key idea. The pro-social effect.
Pro-social effect,
Meaning, digital tech isn't inherently good or bad for things like empathy. It depends entirely on how it's used. If the content and the interactions are pro-social, maybe a game designed to teach about cyberbullying or a supportive group chat, it can actually increase empathy.
Okay.
But conversely, antisocial uses violent games, online bullying, harassment. Those things demonstrably reduce empathy. So the environment you create, the rules you set, they directly shape not just learning, but social and emotional development too.
Right. Which brings us crashing into the reality of where most students actually are connecting right now.
Exactly. The leased land problem.
Okay, let's unpack this leased land idea. We know students default to Discord, WhatsApp, Facebook groups. They're popular. They're easy. But where do they actually fail education? What's the risk?
Well, the popularity is undeniable. It's convenience, right? Network effect. People are already on Facebook or WhatsApp. Asking them to join yet another platform just for one class or club feels like friction.
Sure, makes sense.
And the data backs us up. Recent community reports still show WhatsApp and Facebook groups having significant chunks, around 8-9% each, of the community platform market. Slack and Discord are a bit lower, maybe 3-4% each, but still major players.
So convenience wins initially, but you called it a devastating strategic cost. What does that cost? What's the rent we're paying on this leased land?
The rent is control, alignment, and ultimately safety. Think about it. You're building your crucial student community on a platform owned by a company whose goals are, frankly, often diametrically opposed to yours.
How so?
Well, Facebook, Discord. Their goal is maximizing engagement, keeping users on the platform longer, showing them ads, collecting data for commercial purposes. A school's goal should be effective communication, student focus, privacy, and maybe even helping spend less time scrolling and more time, studying.
Right. Their business model can actively work against the educational mission.
Precisely. Founders who move off these platforms talk about this all the time. They need to bring acquisition, retention, everything closer to home. Running a community on leased land means you're constantly worried that the next algorithm tweak is going to gut your reach or a policy change will compromise your students. You have no stability.
And it's not always free, is it? Especially as communities grow.
No, not at all. Discord, for example, it looks free to start, but it can get costly as a community scales. You need paid tiers for better moderation, more features, administrative control. Even something like Meetup costs organizers, over $90 every 6 months?
That adds up quickly, especially for a school with potentially hundreds of groups, classes, clubs, teams.
Exactly. It becomes unsustainable. That money could be going towards actual educational resources, not just paying rent to a tech company whose platform might not even be that suitable or safe.
Okay, let's talk safety, because this feels like the absolute crunch point. The legal and ethical duties schools have, especially regarding minors' data.
This is, for me, the single most compelling reason to move away from leased land. It's the privacy and data security nightmare. We're talking about education data mining, EDM.
EDM. Explain that a bit.
It's the practice of analyzing large sets of student data to understand learning patterns, improve teaching, etc. Which sounds good, but educational data is incredibly sensitive, dynamic, interconnected.
And when you mix that with social media data,
that's where the danger spikes. Combining school records, even anonymized ones, with data from a student's Facebook profile or their activity on Discord can inadvertently breach their privacy. These platforms are designed to link data to build profiles.
But hang on, if the school provides anonymized data, how can students possibly be re-identified? Isn't that the point of anonymization?
It's often not as robust as you'd hope. The problem is data linkage. Researchers have shown you can take supposedly anonymous data like click patterns in an online learning system, or even just timings and correctness of answers, and cluster that behavioral data. Then, if you combine those clusters with even publicly available information like university announcements about prize winners or maybe posts the student makes on other platforms, you can start to infer identities, the mosaic effect.
Wow. So disparate pieces of data put together by the platform or third parties can unintentionally reveal who the student is.
Yes. And the school has absolutely zero control over that process when the data lives on a commercial, third-party platform designed for data aggregation. It's a huge vulnerability.
Which makes complying with regulations like COPIA and GDPR incredibly difficult, I imagine.
Immensely difficult. Let's take GDPR, the EU law that basically applies globally now if you handle EU citizens' data. It's famously the toughest privacy and security law on the planet.
And it requires things like explicit consent, right?
Explicit, unambiguous consent. You can't just have a pre-tick box.
Okay.
But even more challenging for schools using platforms like WhatsApp is the right to erasure, the right to be forgotten.
Explain that. How does that clash with something like WhatsApp?
Okay, so GDPR says if a student withdraws their consent, or if their data is no longer needed, say, they graduate, the organization must erase their personal data.
Right. Seems reasonable.
But how does a school enforce that on WhatsApp? Think about a class group chat, years of messages, maybe sensitive discussions about assignments or even personal struggles. If a student leaves the school, how does the school guarantee Meta deletes that student's contributions from everyone else's phones and Meta servers?
They can't.
Exactly. They can't. The platform isn't designed for that. It's designed for persistent, end-to-end encrypted chat history. The school has no technical way to audit or enforce erasure. They're legally liable for data they fundamentally cannot control.
And under GDPR, they'd need to do a data protection impact assessment, a DPIA, for using such a tool.
Yes, for any high-risk processing. And trying to justify using a platform whose entire business model revolves around collecting and retaining data, not minimizing or erasing it, makes passing a DPIA credibly almost impossible. These platforms are just not built for the level of accountability required for handling children's data under laws like GDPR and COPIA.
Which doesn't even touch on the more direct risks, cyberbullying, sexting, mental health issues like Facebook depression.
All of which are amplified when the platform lacks robust school-controlled moderation and safety features. It's a recipe for problems that schools are then left trying to clean up rather than preventing.
Okay, so the picture you're painting of using these mainstream platforms, this leased land, is pretty bleak. High risks, lack of control, legal liabilities.
It really is. The convenience factor just doesn't outweigh the potential downsides for an educational institution.
Which leads us then to the alternative. If leased land is out, the logical step is ownership, digital autonomy. What does that actually look like? What does a school-managed owned network offer that Discord can't?
Fundamentally, it offers control. And control translates directly into better security and privacy. The platform becomes a trusted space, a refuge members can trust, as one source put it.
A refuge. That's a powerful word compared to the often chaotic feel of public platforms.
It is. And because you own it, you have total customization. You can tailor the entire experience, the features, the rules, the look and feel, precisely to your school-specific needs, your pedagogical goals, your safety policies. It's not one size fits all. It's bespoke.
And we actually have some existing models in education, right? Especially for younger kids, platforms designed specifically for schools.
Exactly. Things like Seesaw or Google Classroom, while maybe not full social networks, demonstrate the advantages of purpose-built tools. They prioritize safety and learning, not ads.
What kind of features make them better?
Well, one feature teachers consistently praise is the ability to approve posts before they go live on a student's profile or timeline.
Pre-moderation, like a gatekeeper.
Precisely. It allows teachers or administrators to catch inappropriate content, spam, bullying attempts, whatever, before it ever becomes visible to other students. That is a massive shift from the reactive moderation you see on platforms like Facebook or Discord, where the damage is often already done.
That seems crucial for preventing things like cyberbullying.
It's a huge step. Another key feature mentioned is the ability in some systems to selectively invite parents or guardians into a student-specific feed or timeline.
Okay, increasing transparency.
Exactly. It provides oversight. It means interactions aren't happening in hidden, private chats that adults can't see. It acts as a deterrent and allows for quicker intervention if problems arise. These are features born from educational needs, not commercial ones.
And looking beyond specific school tools, what can we learn from how professional online communities are run? Are there lessons there for schools?
Absolutely. A major trend in the wider community building sector is summed up as depth beats breadth.
Depth beats breadth, meaning
Successful communities focus intensely on serving a specific niche, a core audience, really, really well. They prioritize deep engagement and meaningful connection over just having huge numbers of passive members.
So, quality over quantity.
Exactly. The mantra is often 1,000 highly engaged, passionate members are worth more than 100,000 passive followers. And that philosophy fits a school environment perfectly. A school is a defined, deep niche. The goal isn't millions of users. It's fostering deep learning and support within that specific student body.
That makes so much sense. You want focused interaction, not just noise.
Right. And this ties into another operational point we touched on, tool fatigue.
Ah, yes. Teachers juggling 6 different platforms.
It's a real problem. The data shows nearly 60% of online community businesses are using 3 or more different tools, one for chat, one for events, one for content. It gets overwhelming, leads to burnout, and information gets lost.
So the trend is towards consolidation.
Yes, the push is towards the one tool to rule them all. A single, integrated platform where communication, resources, groups, maybe even coursework integration, can all happen in one place. It simplifies life for everyone, students, teachers, administrators, and ensures nothing falls through the cracks.
Okay, so the ideal is a single, owned, customizable, safe platform focused on deep engagement. That sounds great, but historically, building something like that wasn't that incredibly expensive and technically complex, like needing a whole team of developers.
That was the reality, absolutely. Building a bespoke social network from scratch was a massive undertaking, millions of dollars, years of work, totally out of reach for most schools or even universities.
But you're saying that's changed, that digital autonomy is actually achievable now, even for institutions without huge IT departments.
It has fundamentally changed. This is where the need for these safe, controlled spaces meets a new technical possibility. The barrier to entry is dramatically lower than perceived.
What's enabled this change?
It's the rise of what are called social networks as a service, or SNaaS platforms.
Okay.
Think of platforms like Heights or Social.net is another example, or even the underlying principles discussed in frameworks like Linkspreed or this concept of Web 4. These services essentially provide the building blocks.
So instead of coding it yourself, you're using pre-built components. How does that work? What are you actually paying for?
You're shifting the cost and effort away from custom code development towards configuration and usually a subscription. These SNaaS platforms offer robust, off-the-shelf features, things like setting up custom group structures, public and private channels, built-in moderation tools, maybe integration with online courses or payment systems.
Right, so the core functionality is already there.
Exactly. The school or institution then customizes and configures that pre-built framework to match their specific needs. You get the benefits of an owned platform control, customization, privacy focus without needing to hire an army of software engineers. It solves that historical bottleneck.
Now, you mentioned Linkspreed and this Web 4 idea, and a pretty startling claim setting up a network in 30 seconds. How is that even possible? Does that involve SNaaS?
It's sort of the next evolution, or perhaps a specific implementation focused on extreme ease of deployment. The Web 4 concept, as Linkspreed talks about it, is about moving away from complex proprietary systems entirely towards a super simple, instantly deployable foundation that you control. It's digital autonomy taken to its logical extreme for setup.
Okay, 30 seconds still sounds like marketing, but what's the tech principle? How do they bypass all the usual setup headaches?
It relies on heavy optimization, templates, and probably a highly managed cloud environment. Think of it like instantly launching a pre-configured app specifically designed for community building. All the back-end complexity, hosting, databases, basic code is completely handled and abstracted away.
So the institution isn't even configuring much at the start, they're just activating it.
Essentially, yes. Activating a tailored environment. The point isn't literally timing it with a stopwatch, but illustrating that the technical hurdles that used to take months or years can now potentially be bypassed almost instantly.
And the big takeaway for a school administrator listening to this is?
The strategic takeaway is you don't need a massive grant or a dedicated IT team anymore to start owning your digital community space. The technology now exists to make this accessible and affordable. You can reclaim control much faster than you probably think.
Okay, that's a potential game changer. But owning the platform, owning the land, means you also own the responsibility. You have to write the rules, right?
Absolutely critical point. Moving off leased land means you inherit the governance burden that you were maybe dangerously outsourcing to Facebook or Discord before.
So what kinds of rules and principles does a school need to establish up front if they go down this own platform route?
Governance is everything. They need clear policies on things like interoperability. Can data be moved if needed? Identity management, how do we verify users are who they say they are? Strict privacy protocols, ensuring full GDPR and COPPA compliance from day one, robust security measures, and, crucially, clear liability definitions and data handling procedures, especially regarding that right to be forgotten.
So you have to build the legal and ethical framework alongside the technical one.
You have to. By owning the system, you have the power and the obligation to design rules that guarantee a safe, compliant, education-focused environment instead of just hoping a commercial platform's terms of service align with your needs.
Right, it's taking full responsibility. Okay, let's try and pull these threads together. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
We started by establishing just how vital community is for academic support, cognitive development through that sociocultural lens, and for social-emotional well-being.
Then we really dug into the problems with the status quo relying on that leased land of mainstream platforms. The goals just don't align.
Yeah, the conflict between their ad-driven models and school needs, the huge privacy risks with education data mining and re-identification, the near impossibility of complying with GDPR's right to erasure.
Not to mention the basic safety issues like cyberbullying in poorly moderated spaces.
Which pushed us towards the optimal solution, owning your space, creating custom, private, managed digital environments. We saw examples like Seesaw, but also the lessons from professional communities about depth over breadth.
And crucially, we saw how the technology has caught up. The rise of SNaaS platforms like Heights and these rapid deployment models like Linkspread's Web 4 concept means that taking ownership is no longer a pipe dream. It's technically feasible, affordable, and fast.
The barrier to entry has collapsed.
It really has. And you see parallels in the business world. Companies building these own communities see significant growth, like that 2.8x revenue figure mentioned. For education, the return isn't direct revenue, but it's arguably more valuable. It's compounding the student learning experience, improving retention, building lifelong institutional loyalty.
So the need for safe, controlled educational spaces has met the technology that makes it possible. Digital autonomy is becoming the responsible standard.
I firmly believe so.
Okay, which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, our listener. We've laid out a compelling case. Digital autonomy is crucial for safety and good teaching. The technology like SNaaS and Web 4 is here, ready to go, potentially deployable in, well, let's just say very quickly.
Well, the tools are, yeah.
But our sources point to a major disconnect. Teacher training, the continuous professional development, or CPD in this area, is often described as severely underdeveloped. It tends to focus on just the administrative side of tech and not the deep pedagogy of how to actually teach and foster community within these new owned spaces.
Yeah, the human element. The training hasn't kept pace.
So if the technology is ready almost instantly, but data shows nearly half of schools, 46%, don't even have a structured social media group for students yet, and the educators aren't fully equipped to leverage these powerful new owned platforms effectively, here's the question. Who bears the primary responsibility for making this transformation succeed? Is it the tech providers, the school leadership, the teachers themselves? And how do we bridge that gap between having the instant technical capability and fostering the slower, essential process of pedagogical change and adoption within our schools?